How does an 18-year-old queen, widowed when her husband is poisoned, imprisoned in a fortress by the very man who stole her throne, pressured to marry his son, escape through a hidden passage, flee across enemy territory, marry the most powerful ruler in Europe, and then, when she finally holds the power to destroy her captor, choose instead to pardon him? What kind of empress wields authority across the Holy Roman Empire, crowned in Rome, co-ruling beside her husband, serving as regent for her grandson, yet becomes known not for conquest or political intrigue, but for interceding for prisoners, forgiving enemies, and building monasteries across the land? Why is this Holy Roman Empress, who lived through the entire 10th century, who bridged the first and second millennium, who modeled Christian queenship when medieval politics ran on blood and betrayal, largely forgotten today, her story of mercy unknown to most, despite being canonized over 900 years ago? This is the story of Saint Adelaide, the queen who forgave her enemies. If you have ever struggled to forgive those who hurt you, this story is for you. She was born around the year 931 in the heart of Burgundy to a king and queen who raised her in the rhythms of court life and Christian devotion. Adelaide learned early that royal blood carried both privilege and peril. Her father, Rudolph II, ruled a kingdom caught between greater powers, and she grew up watching diplomacy, alliance, and faith weave together in the fabric of survival. At 15, Adelaide was betrothed to Lothair II, the young king of Italy. It was a political marriage, as all royal unions were, yet something unexpected blossomed between them. Lothair was kind, intelligent, and devoted to his young bride. They ruled together from the Italian court, and for a few brief years, Adelaide knew happiness. She was queen. She was loved. She believed the future stretched before her like a sunlit road. Then, in the year 950, Lothair died. He was barely 20 years old. Rumors spread through the court like poison, whispers that Berengar of Ivrea, a powerful noble with ambitions for the throne, had arranged the king's death. Whether by illness or treachery, Adelaide would never know for certain. What she knew was this: at 18, she was a widow, and Berengar was coming. He seized the Italian throne within weeks, but claiming power was not enough. He needed legitimacy, and Adelaide, the rightful queen, held that key. If his son married her, the crown would rest secure on Berengar's head. When Adelaide refused, he showed his true nature. She was dragged from the palace and imprisoned in a fortress on the shores of Lake Garda. The walls were thick, the guards loyal to her captor. Berengar's men stripped her of servants, of dignity, of hope. They pressed her daily: marry the son, submit, surrender. But Adelaide, young, grieving, alone, refused. She had been queen. She would not become a pawn. In the darkness of her cell, she prayed. She did not know how long she would survive. She only knew she would not break. Months passed in that stone prison. The seasons changed beyond walls she could not see. Adelaide grew thin, worn, but her spirit remained unbroken. She prayed through the long nights, her fingers tracing the sign of the cross, her lips moving in psalms her mother had taught her. Then came the opportunity. Whether through a loyal servant, a sympathetic guard, or Providence alone, Adelaide learned of a hidden passage, a forgotten tunnel beneath the fortress walls. The details have blurred with time, as medieval legends often do. What remains certain is this: in the year 951, Adelaide escaped. She fled through darkness, through forests, through hostile territory where Berengar's men hunted for their lost prize. Exhausted, starving, her royal garments reduced to rags, she made her way to the fortress of Canossa, a stronghold held by those loyal to her cause. From there, she sent word across the Alps to the one man powerful enough to challenge Berengar, Otto I, King of Germany. the ruler who would soon be crowned Holy Roman Emperor. Otto came. He descended into Italy with an army at his back, not only to restore order but to meet this remarkable young queen whose courage had already become legendary. What he found was a woman of 20, tested by suffering yet unbroken, whose faith had deepened rather than shattered in captivity. Within months, Otto asked for her hand. Adelaide accepted. It was a political alliance, certainly. Such marriages always were. But it was also something more. In Otto, Adelaide found a partner who respected her mind, valued her counsel, and shared her faith. In Adelaide, Otto found a queen whose wisdom would shape the empire for decades to come. They married in 951. The widow became a bride once more. The prisoner became an empress in waiting. On February 2, 962, in the ancient Basilica of St. Peter in Rome, Pope John XII placed the imperial crown upon Adelaide's head. She knelt beside Otto as they were anointed together. The Holy Roman Emperor and Empress, the most powerful rulers in Christian Europe. Adelaide could have used that power for vengeance. Berengar, the man who had imprisoned her, humiliated her, and tried to force her into a marriage she despised, was now defeated and at her mercy. The law would have supported his execution. Custom would have expected it. No one would have questioned an empress who destroyed the man who had destroyed her peace. She pardoned him instead. It was not weakness. Adelaide understood power intimately. She had lost it, regained it, and wielded it beside one of the strongest rulers of the age. She chose mercy because she believed mercy was stronger than revenge. She chose forgiveness because she had learned, in the darkness of that prison cell, that bitterness would imprison her more thoroughly than any stone wall. This became the pattern of her reign. Adelaide interceded for prisoners, asking Otto to commute sentences, to show clemency where the law permitted harshness. She welcomed petitioners who had nowhere else to turn. She used her influence not to accumulate wealth or crush rivals, but to temper justice with compassion. Otto respected her counsel. Their partnership was genuine. She attended councils, shaped policy, and influenced the spiritual direction of the empire. Together, they supported the reform of monasteries, the building of churches, and the spread of Christian learning. Adelaide saw her crown not as a prize, but as a responsibility. Power existed to serve the vulnerable. Authority was given for mercy. When political enemies rose against her, as they inevitably did, Adelaide responded with the same pattern. Justice tempered by forgiveness, strength expressed through reconciliation. It was a radical approach to medieval politics. It made her enemies uneasy and her allies devoted. In 973, Otto I died. Adelaide was 42 years old, widowed for the second time. She had spent over 2 decades beside him, building an empire, raising children, shaping a vision of Christian governance. Now she faced the future alone once more. Her son, Otto II, took the throne. He was capable but young, and his reign was marked by military struggles and political tensions. Adelaide stepped back, allowing him to rule, offering counsel when asked. She watched as he married Theophanu, a Byzantine princess whose intelligence and ambition matched her own. Then, in 983, Otto II died suddenly in Rome. He was only 28. Adelaide's grandson, Otto III, was just 3 years old. The empire, the vast, complex web of territories and loyalties her husband had built, now rested on the shoulders of a child. Adelaide became regent, ruling alongside Theophanu. It was not a peaceful partnership. The two women had different visions, different temperaments, different allies. Court factions formed around each of them. The tension was real, the disagreements sharp. Yet Adelaide did not seek to destroy her rival. She had learned, long ago in that prison cell, that vengeance solved nothing. Over time, the two women found a way to govern together. Their reconciliation was imperfect, practical, human, but it held. The empire did not fracture. Otto III grew under their guidance. When Theophanu died in 991, Adelaide continued as sole regent. She was 60 years old, tired from decades of service, yet she carried the burden faithfully. She governed with the same principles she had always held: mercy over harshness, reconciliation over revenge, faith over political calculation. In 994, when Otto III came of age, Adelaide stepped aside. Her work was done. The empire would continue without her. Throughout her years of power, Adelaide never forgot that crowns rust and thrones crumble. She invested in what would last: monasteries, abbeys, houses of prayer that would continue long after her death. She founded the Abbey of Payerney in her native Burgundy, a monastery that still stands today. She supported the Abbey of Celles in Alsace, which became her final home. She gave generously to the Cluniac reform movement, which sought to renew monastic life across Europe, returning religious communities to their original fervor of prayer and simplicity. Adelaide saw these foundations as her true legacy. Empires rise and fall. Political alliances shift like sand. But a community of monks or nuns praying through the centuries, that was something eternal. Every stone she laid for a monastery was a vote for permanence, a declaration that she believed in something beyond the brutal calculations of medieval power. She also continued, to the end, her practice of forgiveness. Political enemies who had opposed her regency, nobles who had schemed against her influence, rivals who had spread rumors and lies, Adelaide met them, one by one, with the same response. She did not pretend the wounds had not been real. She simply refused to let them fester into hatred. This was not naivete. Adelaide had survived imprisonment, widowhood, political intrigue, family conflict. She knew how dangerous the world could be. She chose mercy anyway, because she had come to believe that unforgiveness would damage her soul more than any enemy could damage her body. In her later years, she lived simply. The Empress, who had been crowned in Rome, who had ruled beside one of history's great emperors, who had served as regent for 2 generations, this woman spent her final years in prayer, charity, and quietness. She had held power. She had used it well. Now she released it, preparing for a kingdom that would never end. On December 16, in the year 999, Adelaide closed her eyes for the last time. She was 68 years old, lying in the Abbey of Celles that she had founded and loved. The first Christian millennium was ending. A new age was about to begin. And the Empress, who had shaped so much of the century, was going home. She died as she had lived, in prayer, in simplicity, in peace. The woman who had been imprisoned at 18, crowned at 31, widowed twice, regent twice, who had forgiven enemies when vengeance would have been justified, this woman breathed her last, surrounded by the monks whose community she had built. Nearly a century later, in 1097, Pope Urban II formally declared what those who knew her had always believed. Adelaide was a saint. Her feast day was set for December 16, the anniversary of her death. Why has she been forgotten? Perhaps because medieval German and Italian history feels distant to modern readers. Perhaps because her story lacks the dramatic martyrdom that makes other saints memorable. Perhaps because forgiveness is harder to celebrate than heroic death. Yet her relevance has never faded. Adelaide is the patron of widows. She knew that grief twice. She is the patron of second marriages. Her union with Otto was blessed and fruitful. She is the patron of prisoners and abuse victims. She endured captivity and emerged unbroken. She is the patron of those who struggle to forgive. She showed it is possible. She died at the end of the first millennium, a bridge between ages. She proved that political power and Christian holiness can coexist. She demonstrated that victims can forgive their captors. She showed that the crown's greatest glory is not conquest, but compassion. Saint Adelaide, the queen who forgave her enemies. The Empress who chose mercy. The twice-widowed ruler who transformed suffering into grace. May her example teach us that power is best used for the vulnerable, that forgiveness is stronger than vengeance, and that the most radical political act is sometimes simply to pardon those who tried to destroy you.